I will never forget the sound of that slap. It was loud, so loud that the neighbors ran out of their houses, thinking someone had died. But no one died that night, at least not in the way you think. What died was the little bit of love that still lived between my sister and me. I was 25 when it happened. Yeah, my younger sister stood in front of me with her hands still raised, her chest moving up and down like someone who had just run a long race. The glittering rings on her fingers caught the light as she pointed at me and shouted, "You're jealous because I made it out. Akosua, you're still stuck in Mama Efua's tiny world." Her words hit me harder than the slap. For a moment, I could not speak. My ears buzzed. I looked at her, at the designer gown that hugged her slim figure, at the heavy makeup hiding the tears forming in her eyes. Cameras were still flashing outside the hotel lobby. She had just won a national award for Best Actress. She was shining, and I was the poor one, the sister who managed Mama Efua's old orphanage that no one cared about anymore. But that slap, it opened a door inside my heart. A door I had been trying to keep closed for years. Behind it were the memories of the woman who raised us from nothing, and of the 4 abandoned girls nobody wanted. When people see us now, they think we were born lucky. They see 4 women, Akosua, Abena, and Esi, educated, successful, and always smiling for the cameras. They don't know where it all began. They don't know that once upon a time, we were the girls nobody wanted to touch. My first memory of life was not love. It was hunger. I remember sitting on a mat made from old rice sacks in a small compound in Cape Coast, my stomach rumbling, watching a pot of watery porridge boil slowly on a charcoal stove. Mama Efua's voice echoed from inside our one-room house. She was singing. She always sang when she had nothing else to give. "Met us, Niam," she would whisper after every song, thanking God for small mercies. Back then, I didn't understand how a woman who owned almost nothing could still smile like that. But as I grew, I realized her smile was our miracle. She had 4 of us, none from her womb. I was the eldest, Akosua, the serious one. Then Abena, quiet but sharp. Yeah, full of life and trouble. And Esi, the baby, who loved to laugh even when we had no food. No one ever told us where we came from. All we knew was that Mama Efua found each of us somewhere different. By a clinic, at a bus stop, behind a church, near a lorry station. She said God led her each time. People called her mad for bringing home abandoned babies when she couldn't even feed herself. But she didn't care. She always said, "God didn't make me rich, but he gave me enough love for 10 children. That night after Yas slapped me, I went home and sat in the small living room of the orphanage. The walls were cracked, the ceiling fans slow and noisy. The photo of Mama Efua still hung above the TV. She was smiling in it, wearing her white lace wrapper, her head tied neatly as always. I stared at that picture for a long time. "Ma," I whispered, "if you can hear me, tell me why love turned into hate among your daughters." A soft breeze blew through the window, moving the curtain. For a moment, I felt like she was standing there with me again. Her voice came back in my head, soft, firm, loving. "Akosua," she had said one night, "the world will mock you. They will remind you that you're not my blood. But remember, you are my heart. Never repay pain with pain." But I was tired of pretending, tired of carrying a family that was already broken. Let me take you back, before the slap, before the fame, before the foundation everyone now praises us for. Let me tell you how it really started, the day Mama Efua found me. I was just a baby, wrapped in a dirty towel near a clinic in Cape Coast. The nurses said I had been left there for almost 2 days. Nobody came back for me. They were going to take me to an orphanage when Mama Efua arrived with a tray of boiled eggs she was selling. She heard my cry, looked at me once and said, "This one will not die alone." She had nothing, no husband, no child, no savings, just faith. She took me home that day, and her life changed forever. In the next few years, she found the others. Abena was left near a church. Ya was found sleeping beside a bus station, wrapped in a woman's old scarf. And ESI, the smallest, was dropped in a basket near the hospital gate. Each time, people told Mama Efua to mind her business, but she said, "If I don't, who will?" We grew up together, for different girls with one mother. We fought, we laughed, we shared everything, even our tears. But it was never easy. There were nights when we went to bed hungry, days when we were sent home from school because we hadn't paid our fees. Yet, through it all, Mama Efua never let us lose hope. She told us, education is your weapon. Kindness is your power. She made us promise to never forget each other, no matter what life brought. But life can be cruel. As we grew older, we started to see the world differently. Abena was quiet, always dreaming of becoming a teacher. Yes, I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be a lawyer, to defend people like Mama Efua who were always looked down upon. And yeah, she wanted fame. She said she was tired of poverty. She wanted the bright lights, the cameras, the fans shouting her name. She used to practice in front of our broken mirror, pretending to give interviews. We laughed at her then, but she made it happen. She left home at 18 to chase her dreams in Accra. Mama Efua cried for weeks but still prayed for her every night. The rest of us stayed behind to care for the old woman who raised us. We watched her grow weaker, her body bending with age, her laughter fading slowly. Then one day, she called us to her bedside and said, "Children, one day when I'm gone, promise me you'll stand together. The world can forgive anything but ungrateful hearts." We promised. We swore we'd never let her down. But promises are easy when life is still kind. After Mama Efua's death, everything changed. Ya came back for the funeral, wearing gold earrings and high heels. The whole town came to watch her cry. But when the cameras turned off, she left in silence. She didn't even stay to eat the funeral food. A few months later, she went on national television and said she had grown up in a private home in Kumasi. She never mentioned Mama Efua's name. She erased her from her story. That's when the pain started growing in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind the world who she was before the makeup and the fame. But I stayed silent, because I remembered what Mama Efua used to say, "Don't fight darkness with darkness." Still, silence doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just hides the wound. The night Ya slapped me, she didn't just hit her sister. She hit the memory of the woman who saved us. And as I sat there, my cheek burning, I made a quiet decision. I would not fight her with words. I would show her who she truly was by rebuilding what she forgot, the love that raised us all. That was the night I decided to reopen Efua's Daughters Foundation, the little NGO Mama Efua had dreamed of. It was dusty, broken, and forgotten, but it was ours. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I had no money, no supporters, no big name. But I had something stronger, memory. And I had my mother's voice in my heart. Love never dies, Akosua. It only waits for you to use it. If you're listening right now, tell me, have you ever been betrayed by someone you once called family? Type yes in the comments if you believe love can still heal even the deepest wounds. And don't forget to subscribe to Tales by Wealth for the next chapter. Because what happened after that night will shock you even more. The next morning, my cheeks still stung from Ya's slap. I stood in front of the mirror in my small room and touched the red mark. It had faded a little, but the pain behind it hadn't. It wasn't just about the slap. It was about everything it meant, the distance, the pride, the forgotten love. I stared at myself. A grown woman in her mid-20s, wearing a second-hand blouse and skirt, standing in a house that used to be full of laughter but was now quiet as a grave. The orphanage that once held our happiest memories now felt like a tomb of everything we had lost. That morning I made a decision. I would not let our mother's dream die again, even if it meant standing alone. I took out a rusted key from the small box where Mama Efua kept her things. It was tied with a faded red ribbon. The key opened the storeroom behind the house, the same one Mama Efua always said held her future plan. I had never really checked what was inside after her death. The hinges groaned as I pushed the door open. Dust filled the air, and the smell of old papers hit my nose. Inside were boxes neatly arranged and labeled with her handwriting. Receipts, donations, letters, future plan. I sat on the floor and began to read. One envelope caught my attention. On it, she had written in blue pen, "To my daughters when I am gone." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter, short but powerful. "My beloved daughters, if you are reading this, it means I have gone home to rest. Do not cry for me. Use the love I gave you to heal others. Remember the children you once were, because there are many still crying the way you did. Open this foundation again. Name it Efua's daughters. It will be my last blessing on earth. Mama Efua." Tears rolled down my face as I read those words. Her handwriting, shaky but beautiful, felt alive. It was as if she had known we would forget. As if she knew one of us would fall and the others would drift away. I whispered to myself, "I will do it, Mama. I promise." The next day, I went into town. I had just enough money for trotro fare to the municipal office. I wore my best dress, the same yellow one I had used for Mama Efua's burial. My hair was neatly braided, even though it was old and rough at the ends. I carried the envelope and some of her papers in my bag. The clerk at the front desk looked bored. "Good morning," I said. She nodded slowly without looking up. "Yes? What do you want?" "I want to reopen a foundation that my late mother registered years ago," I said. "It's called Efua's Daughters Foundation." That got her attention. She looked at me properly for the first time. "Efua's Daughters?" she repeated. "Wait, I've heard of that name. Wasn't she the woman who raised abandoned children?" "Yes," I said proudly. "That was my mother." Something softened in her face. She went through a stack of files and found a thin, dusty one. She blew the dust away and smiled faintly. "It's still here. It was never officially closed. You just need to renew the license and update the trustees." I felt a small spark of hope inside me. Maybe this was the beginning of something. "How much will it cost?" I asked. She scribbled some numbers on a paper and pushed it toward me. My heart sank. The amount was more than 3 months of my salary at the small school where I volunteered. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling fan that turned slowly, making a clicking sound with every turn. SI's room was empty now. She had gone to Kumasi for her nursing training. Abena lived with her husband in Takoradi. And Ya was in another world entirely. I felt alone. But then, I remembered Mama Efua's favorite saying, "When you think you have nothing left, check again. Love is still there." The next morning, I took my mother's old basket, the one she used to sell kelaweel, and cleaned it up. I went to the roadside and began selling fried plantain again. The same thing she used to do. At first, it felt strange. I had gone to school, finished university. I was supposed to have a good job, not be standing by the road shouting, "Kelaweel, hot kelaweel." But each cube I sold brought me closer to her dream. Some people laughed. Akosua, after all your education, you are back here?" I smiled and said, "It's not failure, it's foundation." Within 2 weeks, I saved enough to pay part of the fee. One evening, as the sun was going down, I saw a black SUV stop near my stand. The tinted window rolled down, and a familiar voice said, "Akosua?" It was Ya. She stepped out in designer jeans and a white top, her face hidden behind big sunglasses. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. "What are you doing here?" she asked, looking at my tray of kelaweel. Her voice was full of surprise and a bit of shame. "I'm doing what I can," I replied quietly. "I'm rebuilding what you forgot." Her expression changed. She took off her glasses. "Akosua, I didn't forget. I just couldn't face it." I looked at her, unsure whether to believe her or not. She continued, "I saw the comments online after that night. People called me proud, wicked, ungrateful. They were right." She swallowed hard. "I don't know how to fix what I broke." "Then start here," I said softly. "Help me bring back Mama Efua's dream." For the first time in years, her eyes softened. She nodded slowly. "Tell me what to do." We spent that night sitting by the roadside, talking like sisters again. She told me things I never knew. How she had suffered in the city despite her fame. How she had trusted the wrong people. How her heart still ached for our mother. And I told her about the letter, about the foundation, about my plan. When she left that night, she promised to come the next day with a lawyer. I didn't know if she meant it, but hope had already lit a candle in my heart. The next morning, I went to the office again. True to her word, Ya showed up, without cameras, without makeup, just herself. She signed the papers as one of the trustees. I signed as the second. When we submitted them, the clerk smiled. "It's official," she said. "Efua's daughter's foundation is alive again." My heart almost burst. I walked outside, looked at the sky, and whispered, "Mama, we did it." Ya touched my shoulder gently. "We're not done yet," she said. "We have to build it properly this time." For once, I saw the little girl in her again, the one who used to dance in our compound and dream big dreams. Maybe she was finally finding her way home. That evening, we sat on the porch together eating roasted corn. The smell of charcoal filled the air. "I still don't know how to face Abena and ESI," Ya said quietly. "Start by saying sorry," I replied. She smiled faintly. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy," I said. "But Mama Efua forgave you long before you asked." The silence between us was no longer heavy. Felt peaceful, like a bridge being rebuilt. 2 weeks later, we held the first meeting of the revived foundation. Just a few people came, mostly neighbors, old friends of Mama Efua, and 2 journalists who heard the story. We showed them her old pictures, her letters, her dream. When I finished talking, a woman in the back stood up. Her eyes were full of tears. "My daughter was abandoned when she was a baby," she said. "She was found by a stranger and taken to an orphanage. Maybe she's alive somewhere today because of women like your mother. I want to donate something." She walked forward and dropped a white envelope on the table. Inside was 5,000 Ghana cedis. It was more than enough to finish the registration and start small renovations on the orphanage. Ya grabbed my hand, trembling. "Do you see what's happening, Akosua? This is Mama Efua's spirit. She's still with us." I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was full of tears. That night, I walked alone through the rooms of the old orphanage. The walls were cracked, but the memories were alive. I touched the bunk bed we used to share as kids, the old chalkboard where Mama Efua wrote Bible verses, the tiny kitchen that once smelled of fried plantain. I knelt beside her old chair and whispered, "We're starting again, Mama. This time we'll make you proud." As I closed my eyes, I could almost hear her voice again. "Akosua, my daughter, when you choose love, you always win, even when the world calls you foolish." I didn't sleep that night. My heart was full of hope, fear, and something else I couldn't name. The foundation was alive again, but I knew it would take more than papers and promises to make it work. We needed money, structure, people, and forgiveness. The next morning, I woke up early and walked barefoot into the compound. The air in Accra was cool, and a faint smell of roasted maize came from a nearby street. I stood where Mama Efua used to stand every morning, hands on her waist, humming her favorite hymn. I whispered softly, "We've started, Mama. Help me continue." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ya. "I'm at the studio all day, but I'll send you something small for the repairs. Let's meet on Sunday." I smiled. Something small from Ya usually meant a lot. Maybe she was truly changing. By mid-morning, I decided to visit Abena in Takoradi. She had stopped taking my calls after the family argument months ago. I knew she still blamed Ya for everything, and I couldn't blame her. She was the one who had stayed behind to care for Mama Efua when Ya ran off. But now I needed her. We needed all of us. The journey to Takoradi took almost 4 hours. I watched the roads roll by, the coconut trees, the children walking to school, the trotro drivers shouting destinations. Ghana was full of movement, but I felt still inside. When I arrived, the sun was bright and hot. Abena lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment behind a Methodist church. Her husband, Kofi, was a gentle man who worked as a carpenter. He greeted me warmly and called for her. When she came out, her face froze in shock. "Akosua?" she said. wiping her hands on a cloth. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "Because you would have said no," I answered with a small smile. She folded her arms, trying to hide her emotion. "You're right. I came to talk," I said. "Please." She hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. Her house smelled of fried fish and soap. A little girl ran past us, her daughter, Araba, only 4 years old. The sight of her warmed my heart. She had Mama Efua's eyes. We sat down. Silence filled the room for a while. I finally said, "The foundation is alive again." Abena looked up sharply. "You mean Mama Efua's foundation?" "Yes. Yeah, and I reopened it last week." Her expression changed immediately. "Yeah? You did it with her?" I nodded. "She's changed, Abena. She's sorry." "Sorry?" Abena's voice trembled. "She's sorry after she left us to suffer? After she made Mama Efua die with a broken heart?" I sighed. "I know she hurt us, but this isn't about her anymore. It's about the woman who raised us. Mama Efua would have wanted peace." Abena shook her head. "You're too soft, Akosua. Some wounds don't heal." Her words stabbed deep, but I didn't let it show. "Then let's heal them together. Come and see what we're doing. If you still feel that way after, I won't bother you again." She looked away, biting her lip. "Kofi says I should let go. Maybe I should. But I don't trust her." "You don't have to," I said gently. "Just trust me." After a long pause, she nodded. "I'll come on Sunday." When I returned to Accra, I felt both relieved and nervous. Getting Abena to agree was a small miracle, but I knew the reunion wouldn't be easy. Old pain never disappears quietly. Sunday came faster than I expected. Ya arrived first, wearing a simple dress and no makeup, something rare for her. She helped sweep the compound and arrange chairs. "You think she'll come?" she asked. "She said she would," I replied. "She always hated me," Ya murmured. "She never hated you. She hated what you did." Ya nodded quietly, eyes down. For the first time, she looked like the little sister I once knew. Not the famous actress everyone adored, but the girl who used to dance barefoot in our yard. At noon, a taxi pulled up. Abena stepped out with Kofi and her daughter. The tension was thick. Ya froze. I walked forward, hugging Abena first, then turning to Ya. "Abena," I said softly, "this is the moment Mama Efua prayed for." For a long moment, the two women just looked at each other. Then, Abena said, "You look thinner, Ya?" Ya smiled faintly. "I stopped sleeping properly." Abena's lip trembled. "You broke all of us." "I know," Ya whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't change the past, but I can help build the future." Something in her voice melted Abena's heart. She dropped her bag and hugged her tightly. Both of them began to cry. Kofi clapped his hands softly, smiling. "Ah, finally peace has come." I stood there crying too. For the first time in years, all three of us were together again, just missing ESI, who was still in Kumasi. But it felt like Mama Efua was standing with us, invisible but strong. The rest of the afternoon was filled with laughter and planning. We talked about repainting the orphanage, repairing the roof, and reopening the school section. Abena offered to teach the children once it started running again. When evening came, we sat under the mango tree in the compound, eating jollof and laughing about our childhood days. Ya said, "Do you remember when ESI tried to fry plantain and burnt the whole kitchen wall?" We all laughed so hard that people passing by smiled at us. Then I said, "We have one more thing to do. We have to bring ESI home." Abena nodded. "She's in Kumasi, right?" "Yes. She works at the government hospital." "I'll go with you," Ya said quickly. I looked at her, surprised. "You really want to?" "Yes. It's time to finish what we started." 2 days later, Ya and I boarded a bus to Kumasi. The journey was long, but the silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. She rested her head on my shoulder and said, "Do you think she'll forgive me?" "I think she already has," I replied. When we reached Kumasi, it was late afternoon. The city was busy. Cars honking, traders shouting, music playing from speakers. We found the hospital where ESI worked. She was wearing her nurse uniform when we arrived, her face tired but calm. When she saw us, she froze. "Sister Akosua?" "Yeah?" I smiled. Surprise. Her eyes filled with tears immediately. "Oh my God. Is it really you too?" Ya walked forward and hugged her tightly. "I missed you, ESI." ESI stepped back, looking at her face. "You look different." "I'm trying to be," Ya said. They both started crying and I joined them. The three of us stood in that hospital corridor like lost children who had finally found home. That night, ESI took us to her small apartment. We cooked together, laughed, and talked until midnight. She told us how lonely she had felt since Mama Efua died, how she sometimes dreamed of her voice saying, "My daughters will come back to me one day." "I guess she was right," I said quietly. Before we slept, Ya took out a small box. Inside was a gold chain with a pendant that read, Efua. She placed it on the table. "I had this made for all of us," she said. "One for each sister." Si picked it up and smiled through her tears. "Maybe the world broke us apart, but this will keep us together." We all hugged again. In that moment, I realized something powerful. The past may hurt, but love, when real, always finds its way home. The next morning, we took a walk through the busy Kumasi streets. We stopped at a shop and bought new curtains, paint, and some supplies for the orphanage. Ya paid for everything without blinking. When I tried to stop her, she said, "Let me give back, please." I didn't argue. Before we left, ESI gave her supervisor notice that she would be gone for 2 weeks to help rebuild the foundation. "I'll be back after it's done," she said. We traveled back to Accra together that evening. As the bus rolled through the night, we sang Mama Efua's favorite song softly. People stared, but we didn't care. For once, peace had returned to our family. When we reached home, we found that Abena and Kofi had already started cleaning the compound. Neighbors came to help too. They said, "Mama Efua's spirit is working again." Over the next week, the four of us worked side by side, painting, scrubbing, fixing windows, planting flowers. The laughter returned to our home. At night, we sat on the porch sharing old stories until we fell asleep on plastic chairs. The cracks that once separated us began to fade. And as I watched my sisters laughing under the stars, I realized something Mama Efua used to say was true. Love may sleep, but it never dies. If you're still listening, remember, family isn't only about blood. It's about who shows up when the world turns cold. Tell me in the comments, have you ever forgiven someone who broke your heart? Type yes if you believe forgiveness can rebuild what pain destroyed. And don't miss the next chapter on Tales by Wealth, because the peace we found was only the calm before another storm. The peace didn't last long. It was a Tuesday morning when everything started to fall apart again. I was sitting in the office of the newly reopened foundation, sorting through donations and papers, when I heard the sound of raised voices outside. At first, I thought it was the children playing in the compound. But when I stepped out, I saw Ya and Abena standing face to face, shouting at each other like enemies. "You think money can fix everything?" Abena's voice was sharp, trembling with anger. Ya crossed her arms. "I'm not trying to fix everything. I'm doing what needs to be done." "By what right?" Abena shouted. "You've been gone for years. You didn't even bury Mama properly." Ya's eyes darkened. "And you think you're the only one who loved her?" I froze at the doorway, heart pounding. Not again. Not after all the healing we'd fought for. When I stepped between them, Abena turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Tell her, Akosua, tell her she can't just walk in here and take over like she owns the place." Ya's lips trembled. "I gave the foundation 500,000 cedis. Abena. That money was meant to rebuild everything, the roof, the clinic, the kitchen. I didn't do it for control. I did it for her." Abena's hands clenched. "You did it for your image, for the cameras, to clean your name." Her words cut deep. Even I winced. Ya took a step back, hurt flickering in her eyes. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, too heavy. Then Ya whispered, "If that's what you believe, maybe I should leave." She turned and started walking toward her car. I rushed after her. "Ya, stop." She didn't turn. Yeah, please, I shouted, my voice breaking. Finally, she stopped by the gate. All my life, I've been trying to prove I belong here, Akosua. Maybe I don't. Then she got into the car and drove away. That night, I sat outside under the same mango tree where we once laughed. The stars were dim. The house felt cold again. Abena came out quietly and sat beside me. I didn't mean to push her away, she said in a low voice. I nodded. But you did. She sighed heavily. I'm just angry. Every time I see her, I remember how Mama Efua cried at night, waiting for her to call. It's hard to forget. I looked at her. Abena, forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about setting yourself free. She didn't answer. We just sat there, listening to the crickets and the distant hum of traffic. The next morning, I went to the construction site behind the foundation. Workers were fixing the roof and painting the walls. I wanted to focus on something positive. I joined them, painting the front gate blue, Mama Efua's favorite color. As I worked, I thought about everything. Our journey, our mistakes, and the love that refused to die. By afternoon, a familiar car pulled up. It was Yas' SUV. My heart leaped, but she wasn't alone. A man stepped out with her, tall, serious-looking, in a suit. Akosua, Yas said, walking toward me slowly. This is Mr. Mensah. He's a lawyer. I asked him to help us legally protect the foundation. I wiped my hands on my cloth. You came back. She smiled faintly. I never really left. I just needed to cool my head. Mr. Mensah greeted me politely. Good afternoon, Miss Akosua. I've reviewed your mother's documents. This foundation was registered with all 4 daughters as potential successors. That means you, Abena, and ESI all share ownership equally. Equally? Abena asked, stepping closer. Then we all must sign any major decision, right? Yes, the lawyer said. That's the rule. Nodded. That's exactly why I called him. I don't want anyone to think I'm taking over. Abena's face softened. Then maybe I was wrong. Gave her a small, forgiving smile. Maybe we both were. Over the next week, we worked together again. Mr. Mensah helped us set up proper accounts, and used her fame to attract donations from celebrities and businesses. Abena managed the school section, and ESI helped design the small clinic inside the compound. Everything began to look beautiful again. Bright walls, new beds, happy children. But just when we thought peace had fully returned, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, a delivery truck arrived at the gate. The driver handed me a parcel with no name, only the words, "For the truth," written on the box. I opened it carefully. Inside was an envelope, a flash drive, and a small piece of paper that said, "Everything you think you know about your mother isn't true." My blood ran cold. Abena came to my side. What is it? I handed her the note. She frowned and opened the flash drive on my laptop. Inside were scanned documents, birth records, hospital logs, and what looked like an old police report. At the top of one file, in bold letters, it said, Subject, Efua Asante, Child Abduction Case, 1987. I gasped so hard my throat hurt. No, that can't be right. Abena scrolled through the file, eyes wide. It says one of the babies she took was reported missing from a private clinic 25 years ago. We looked at each other in shock. Which one of us? I whispered. Abena scrolled further down the file. The name was blurred from age, but one letter stood out clear enough to read. I. We all had names starting with a Akosua, Abena, and even Yas' real name, Adwoa. Could be any of us. I felt my knees grow weak. No, Mama Efua could never. Before I could finish, entered the room. What's going on? Abena showed her the file. Her face turned pale. That's a lie, said quickly. Someone is trying to destroy what we've built. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe Mama Efua was still the saint I had always known. But the paper in my hands said otherwise. Abena whispered, Maybe this is why people called her crazy. Maybe she wasn't just finding babies. Maybe she was taking them. Don't say that, I shouted, my voice shaking. Tears welled in my eyes as I clutched the papers. She saved us. She loved us. She would never do that. But deep inside, fear began to grow. Fear that everything we believed about our lives might be a lie. That night, none of us slept. We sat around the table, staring at the documents. Ya paced the floor. Abena cried quietly, and ESI tried to calm everyone. Let's not jump to conclusions, ESI said. This could be fake. Let's find the truth before we destroy our mother's name. She was right, but my mind was already spiraling. What if it was true? What if we were living a lie? What if Mama Efua wasn't the saint we had painted her to be? I looked at the portrait of her on the wall, her warm smile, her gentle eyes, and whispered, "Who were you, really?" The next morning, we took the documents to Mr. Mensah. He read them carefully and said, "These are old records. They could have been manipulated. But one thing stands out. The report came from Cape Coast General Hospital. That's where you said she found you, Akosua." My heart skipped a beat. "You think it was me?" He shrugged gently. "We can't know without evidence. But we can check the hospital archives." I nodded slowly. "Then we'll go." Ya placed her hand on mine. "Whatever we find, Akosua, you're my sister. Nothing will change that." Abena added quietly, "Me too." Yes, I smiled softly. "We were raised by love, not by blood. That's what matters." I tried to smile back, but inside, I felt like the ground beneath me was cracking. The next day felt like walking into a storm I didn't want to face. I woke up before sunrise, packed a small bag, and waited by the gate for Ya and Abena. The plan was simple: go to Cape Coast General Hospital, check the archives, and find out if the documents were real. But deep inside, I prayed we would find nothing. I prayed it was all a cruel joke. The drive from Accra to Cape Coast was quiet. The ocean breeze followed us as we moved along the road. Ya drove while Abena sat in the back, arms folded, eyes staring out the window. Nobody said a word for almost 2 hours. Every time I tried to speak, my throat closed up. Finally, Ya broke the silence. "Akosua," she said softly, "if it turns out to be true, will you still love her?" I turned to her. "She's my mother, Ya. Nothing can change that." Abena sighed. "Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy love. It just changes what it means." None of us said anything else until we reached the hospital gate. The hospital looked older than I remembered. The white paint was peeling, and the smell of antiseptic filled the air. I could almost see Mama Efua walking down these same corridors 25 years ago, carrying me in her arms, whispering prayers that I would live. We went straight to the records office. The clerk, an elderly woman with silver hair, adjusted her glasses when I explained why we were there. "You're looking for birth and police records from 1987? She asked. "Yes," I said. "The report mentioned a missing baby." She looked at us carefully. "That's a long time ago. Many files were moved to the basement. Wait here." She disappeared into a dim hallway. We waited for what felt like forever. Abena paced. Ya tapped her fingers on the table. I stared at the floor, praying silently. When the woman returned, she was holding a small brown folder covered in dust. She set it down gently. "This is what I could find. Most of the ink has faded." My heart pounded as I opened it. Inside were 2 papers, one a hospital record, the other a police report. The hospital record had a name written faintly at the top. Baby A J, female, missing after birth, April 18, 1987. The police report said, Mother Mrs. Ajoa Ajay. Status: filed complaint of missing child, believed to be abducted from maternity ward. My hands began to shake. "Ajay," I whispered. "That's my birth name. It has to be." Ya's eyes widened. "You don't know that for sure." Abena touched my arm gently. "Akosua, maybe it's a coincidence." But I knew deep down it wasn't. I stepped outside, gasping for air. The wind from the sea was strong, blowing sand into my face. My whole world was spinning. Could it be true? Could Mama Efua have taken me from this hospital without permission? No, I refused to believe it. She was kind. She was good. She couldn't be a thief. yet came to stand beside me. Whatever happened, she still raised you with love. I turned to her, tears falling freely. But what if that love was stolen from someone else? What if I was never meant to be hers? She gave you life again, Ya said softly. That's what matters. I didn't answer. I just looked toward the ocean, its waves crashing against the rocks like my thoughts against my heart. We drove back to Accra in silence again. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mama Efua's face. The way she used to smile, the way she sang us to sleep. I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't. I wanted to hate her, but love wouldn't let me. The next morning, ESI came from Kumasi. I showed her the files. She read them slowly, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "Maybe we need to find the woman in the report, Mrs. Ajoa Ajay. If she's alive, she deserves to know." Abena looked alarmed. "And if she's not? What if this brings shame to Mama's name?" Esai's eyes glistened. "The truth doesn't bring shame, Abena. Lies do." Ya nodded. "We'll find her." We spent the next week searching records, calling hospitals and asking questions. Nobody seemed to know where Mrs. Ajoa Ajay was. Some said she died years ago. Others said she moved abroad after losing her child. I was about to give up when one nurse remembered something. "She used to live in Elmina, near the old lighthouse," the nurse said. "A kind woman, very private. I don't know if she's still there." The next day we drove to Elmina. The town was beautiful. Colorful boats, children running by the shore, fishermen shouting from the docks. But I barely noticed. My heart was pounding too hard. We stopped at a small house painted in blue and white. An elderly woman sat outside, peeling oranges. Her hair was silver, her face calm and kind. I approached her slowly. "Good afternoon, Ma." She looked up. "Good afternoon, my dear. You look troubled." I swallowed hard. "Are you Mrs. Ajoa Ajay?" She frowned slightly. "Yes. Who's asking?" I took a deep breath. "My name is Akosua. I think I might be your daughter." The orange fell from her hand. Her lips trembled. "What did you say?" I showed her the hospital record. Her eyes scanned the paper, and suddenly, tears began to stream down her face. She covered her mouth, shaking. "My baby," she whispered. "They told me she died that night. They told me she never cried, never breathed." I buried an empty coffin. Couldn't breathe. My knees gave way, and I fell to the ground beside her. "I don't know how it happened," I cried. "But the woman who raised me, she wasn't evil. She saved me. Maybe she thought I was abandoned." Mrs. Ajay pulled me into her arms, sobbing. "I don't care how it happened. You're alive. That's enough for me." For a long time we stayed like that, two broken pieces finally finding each other again. When I returned to Accra, everything felt different. My sisters hugged me tightly, but I could see the confusion in their eyes. I wasn't just Akosua anymore. I was also someone's lost child. "I met her," I told them. "She's real. She's kind. And she forgave Mama Efua." Abena wiped her eyes. "Then maybe we should too." Ya looked thoughtful. "Maybe Mama didn't steal you, Akosua. Maybe she saved you from a system that failed you." Yes, I nodded. Whatever the truth, we are still her daughters. Love made us family. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace again. Maybe the truth wasn't meant to destroy us, but to remind us how deep Mama Efua's love had been. That weekend, we held a memorial for her. We invited the children from the orphanage, the neighbors, and everyone she had ever helped. The banner read, "In loving memory of Mama Efua, a heart bigger than blood." I stood at the podium, my voice steady but filled with tears. "She wasn't perfect," I said. "None of us are. But she taught us that love can rewrite destiny, that it can heal what the world breaks." Today, I don't stand here as an orphan, or even as a stolen child. I stand here as proof that love never dies. The crowd clapped, some crying openly. And as I stepped down, I felt something, like a warm breeze brushing against my cheek. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Mama, for everything." That night, I couldn't sleep again. but for a different reason. Peace had returned, but a question still lingered. If the truth could be buried for 25 years, what else did we not know? And I didn't realize it then, but the next discovery would shake our family even harder than the last. I thought the worst was behind us after I met Mrs. Ajay. I thought knowing the truth about where I came from would bring peace. But I was wrong. The truth is like the ocean, it doesn't stay still. Keeps moving, bringing up things you thought were buried forever. A week after the memorial, I came home late from the foundation's new clinic. The night air in Accra was warm, and the compound was quiet. But as soon as I entered the house, I heard voices coming from the living room. Ya was crying. Abena and ESI were standing beside her, holding some papers. "What's going on?" I asked, dropping my bag. Ya turned to me, eyes red and swollen. "It's about Mama Efua again," she said in a shaky voice. "We found something." Abena handed me the papers. They were letters, old ones, hidden behind the frame of Mama Efua's picture. Her handwriting was still the same, soft and neat. But the words, they broke me. "To whoever finds this, I did not steal those children. I saved them. The first baby I found was left by her mother after birth. The hospital staff were arguing about who would take her to social welfare. They forgot her. I didn't. The second was found near the bus station after a woman ran away. The third, I took from a clinic where the nurses said she had died. But I saw her breathing. Maybe they will call me a thief. But God knows the truth. I only followed his voice. My hands trembled as I read it. As I whispered, she wasn't lying. She saved us from being lost. Tears filled my eyes. Then why did she hide this? Ya answered quietly, because she knew the world wouldn't understand. They would never believe a poor woman did something holy. We sat there in silence, letting her words sink in. Mama Efua had carried this guilt alone for years, loved us fiercely, but feared the world's judgment. The next morning, we decided to visit the police station in Cape Coast again with the letters. The officer in charge was young, probably not even born when the report was filed. He read the letters carefully and nodded. "These aren't criminal," he said. "If this woman truly found the children abandoned, she didn't commit a crime. She did what most people wouldn't dare to do." When we walked out of the station, Ya whispered, "So she was innocent all along?" I nodded. "She always was." Abena held the letters tightly against her chest. "Then we have to clear her name publicly. Everyone needs to know what she did." Ya smiled sadly. "And they will." 2 weeks later, we organized a special event at the foundation. We called it the Day of Grace, named after her, Efua, the woman who chose love over blood. We invited journalists, government officials, and families from across Ghana. I stood at the podium, the crowd before me, and told her story, our story. 25 years ago, a poor woman opened her heart to 4 children no one wanted. The world judged her, but she still loved. Today, we honor her truth. That love is not a crime. It is courage. When I finished speaking, the crowd stood and clapped for a long time. Some cried. Even the Minister for Gender and Children Affairs came forward and said, "This woman's story will be part of our national program on child welfare. She deserves to be remembered." It was the proudest day of my life. That night, after the event, we sat under the stars again, me, Ya, Abena, and ESI. The compound glowed softly from the lights we had strung around the mango tree. The children in the orphanage were asleep. The air smelled of fried fish and fresh rain. "I think Mama Efua is smiling right now," ESI said quietly. "She is," I said. "But I feel like there's still something she wanted us to do." Ya leaned back in her chair. "Like what?" I looked at the children's dormitory, the small building that used to be our home. "She always said love isn't complete until it gives back. Maybe it's time we do the same." Abena raised her eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "I mean we should adopt. Not just one child, many. Let's be the mothers she trained us to be." The silence that followed was deep. Ya's lips parted slightly, and then she smiled through her tears. "That's the best idea you've ever had." Yes, I clapped softly. "I'm in." Abena nodded slowly. "Then we'll do it together." A month later, the process began. Social welfare sent us files of children who had been abandoned across the country. Some were found under bridges, some at church doors, some in hospitals, just like we had been. Every story felt familiar, like looking into a mirror. We visited one of the shelters. The children's faces lit up when they saw us. They called us Auntie and followed us everywhere we went. One little girl, barely 4, held my hand and wouldn't let go. She had big eyes and a shy smile. "What's your name?" I asked. "Efua," she whispered. "I don't have a mummy." My throat tightened. I looked at Ya, who was watching us with tears in her eyes. I lifted Efua into my arms. "You do now," I said softly. "You do now." That day we adopted 4 girls, just like Mama Efua did. We named them after the things she always prayed for: peace, joy, grace, and light. On the day they moved in, the whole compound was full of laughter again. The girls ran around, playing with the older children. Their joy was contagious. When the youngest one, Grace, fell and started crying, I ran to pick her up. She stopped crying when I whispered, "It's okay. You're safe now." That night, as they slept in their new beds, I sat on the porch and whispered to the stars, "Mama, we've done it. We've continued your circle of love." I felt a breeze brush against my face again, warm and gentle. I smiled through my tears. Maybe that was her answer. But even in that joy, something unexpected happened. As we were sorting out the children's files, Ya found another document hidden inside one folder. Something that didn't belong there. It was an old letter, yellow and fragile, addressed to Efua Asante in neat handwriting. She read it out loud. "Efua, you may never forgive me, but I must tell you the truth. One of the babies you found was not abandoned. She was mine. I couldn't care for her then, but I watched you raise her from afar. If she ever learns who she is, tell her I never stopped loving her. Your sister, Abena Asante." We froze. Abena whispered, "Her sister? That means..." One of us was Mama Efua's niece. I felt chills down my spine. "Which one?" Ya looked at me with wide eyes. She didn't say. We sat there in silence, the night suddenly colder. The laughter of the children faded into the distance. Once again, a secret had risen from the past. Another layer of truth waiting to be uncovered. If you're listening right now, tell me, what would you do if you discovered your mother's biggest secret after her death? Type "love never dies" in the comments if you believe truth doesn't destroy families. It heals them. And don't miss the next chapter on Tales by Wealth, because the letter from Mama Efua's sister will uncover the final truth none of us were ready to face. For 3 nights I couldn't sleep. The letter from Mama Efua's sister kept replaying in my mind. One of the babies you found was not abandoned. She was mine. Her sister. That meant one of us wasn't just adopted, one of us was blood. But who? We all sat around the dining table the next morning. The house was silent except for the ticking wall clock. Ya laid the letter flat on the table. "This changes everything," she said softly. I crossed her arms. "Or maybe it changes nothing. We're still sisters." Abena frowned. "That's easy to say when it's not about you. What if the child she meant was you, Esi? What if you've been Mama Efua's niece all along?" I shrugged. "Then it doesn't matter. She was still my mother." I watched them argue quietly, my heart pounding. The words on that paper had opened a wound we didn't know was still there. That afternoon, we went through the remaining boxes of Mama Efua's belongings. There was an old photo album, a few jewelry pieces, and a small wooden box tied with red thread. I untied it carefully. Inside was another letter, folded neatly, and a faded photograph of 2 young women who looked almost identical. The letter read, "Efua, you raised her better than I ever could. If the day comes when she asks who she truly is, show her the photo. She will know by the mark on her shoulder. Only my daughter has it." A mark. We all looked at each other. Ya stood first and pulled down her blouse slightly, checking her shoulder. Nothing. Abena turned hers. Nothing. Yes, I did the same, still nothing. Then they all turned to me. "Akosua," Ya said gently. "Check yours." I hesitated, then pulled my sleeve aside. There it was, a small, dark birthmark shaped like a half-moon. The room fell silent. Abena gasped. "Then it's you." "Yes," I whispered. "Your Mama Efua's niece." My legs felt weak. "No, that can't be." Ya touched my hand. "It means she was even more of a mother to you than we thought. She saved her sister's child and never told anyone." Tears filled my eyes. "Why would she hide it? Why keep something like that secret?" Abena answered quietly. "Maybe she didn't want you to grow up with the burden of being different. Maybe she wanted all of us to feel equal." I sank into a chair, covering my face. So all this time, I was the only one with her blood. Yes, I knelt beside me. But that never made you more or less her daughter. We all shared her heart. That night, I sat outside again under the mango tree. The moonlight spilled over the compound. I looked up and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me, Mama? Did you think I couldn't handle the truth?" The breeze answered softly, brushing my hair back like her old hands used to. I realized then that secrets are not always born from lies. Sometimes they come from love, the kind of love that protects even when it hurts. The next morning, I decided to visit Elmina again, to see Mrs. Ajoa Ajay, the woman who had thought she was my biological mother. I needed to tell her the truth. When she opened the door, her face lit up. "My daughter," she said, hugging me tightly. I pulled away slowly. "I came to tell you something, Ma." Her smile faded. "What is it?" I handed her the photograph of Mama Efua and her sister. "The truth is, I'm not your child. The records were wrong. My real mother was Mama Efua's sister." She stared at the photo, her lips trembling. "So, she wasn't a stranger after all." I nodded. "She was family." She covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Then she did the right thing. She gave you love I could never give. Don't be sad, my child. You were never lost. You were found." I hugged her again. "Thank you for forgiving her." When I returned to Accra, Abena and ESI were waiting on the porch. They had lit candles around the old mango tree, 4 candles, one for each daughter, and one larger candle in the center for Mama Efua. ESI smiled softly. "We wanted to do this together, to end the secrets and begin something new." Abena held my hand. "We've spent our whole lives trying to find where we came from, but maybe it was never about that. Maybe it's about where we're going." Ya nodded. "We'll use the foundation to keep her name alive forever. Every child who comes through here will know her story." I felt warmth fill my chest. "Then let's promise something, no more hiding. From today, the truth stays open." We stood together, the candlelight flickering on our faces, and repeated softly, "No more secrets, only love." The next morning, we held a press conference at the foundation. The story of Mama Efua, the woman who had once been judged and misunderstood, spread across Ghana. Newspapers called her the Mother of the Forgotten. Schools began to include her name in lessons about courage and compassion. Donations poured in. But beyond all the praise, something even more beautiful happened. Women from across the country started visiting us, sharing their own stories. Women who had adopted children, women who had been abandoned, women who wanted to love again. Each one said the same thing: "If Mama Efua could do it, so can I." That day, I knew she hadn't just changed our lives. She had changed Ghana. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, I walked to her grave behind the orphanage. The flowers were fresh. The ground was clean. I knelt and whispered, "You gave us everything, even the truth we didn't ask for. I know now why you kept it. It was never about who belonged to who. It was about what love could create." The wind rustled gently, and a mango dropped near my feet, her favorite fruit. I smiled through my tears. "Rest well, Mama. We'll carry your name to the ends of the earth." Peace returned to our home, but not for long. The night after we found the letter from Mama Efua's sister, I dreamed of her. She was standing under the mango tree, holding 4 candles in her hands. Her eyes were calm, but her voice was heavy when she said, "My daughters, the truth is not finished yet." When I woke, my bedsheet was soaked in sweat. I could still smell her perfume, the faint scent of shea butter she always used. Morning came with whispers. Ya was already in the kitchen, stirring porridge she probably wouldn't eat. Yesai was sweeping the compound, humming a slow gospel tune. Abena sat on the porch with the letter again, tracing every word with her finger. Do you think she's still alive? Abena asked suddenly. Who? I said. Mama Efua's sister. The one who wrote this. Ya frowned. After all these years? Maybe not. Yesai leaned on her broom. But if she was alive when she sent that letter, it means she knew Mama Efua had us. She watched us grow. That thought sent chills down my spine. Then why didn't she ever come forward? No one answered. Later that afternoon, the postman came with a brown envelope addressed to Efua's Daughters Foundation. There was no sender's name, only a return address from Kumasi. I tore it open carefully. Inside was an old photograph of a young woman and 4 children, us. The back read, Tell them I kept my promise. Abena gasped. Abena Asante. That's her initials. Ya's hand trembled as she took the photo. That means she's alive. I whispered. Maybe she wants to meet us. 2 days later, we traveled to Kumasi again. This time, I felt something different in my chest. Not fear, not anger, but a strange sense of destiny. The address led us to a small church compound surrounded by palm trees. Children were playing in front of the chapel. A middle-aged woman in a white dress came out to meet us. Her smile was soft but knowing. You must be Efua's daughters, she said. I froze. How did you know? She touched her chest. Because I'm her sister, Abena Asante. She looked exactly like Mama Efua. Same eyes, same warm smile. The only difference was the sadness in her face. She invited us inside her small office. On the wall hung a large cross and a photo of a young Efua holding a baby. She sat slowly and said, I have been waiting for this day for 25 years. We listened quietly as she spoke. When we were young, Efua and I were inseparable, she began. But life was cruel. Our parents died early and we struggled. When I became pregnant, I had no husband, no money, and no courage. I ran to Accra to hide my shame. Efua begged me to come home, but I refused. I gave birth in a small clinic in Cape Coast, and I left the baby behind. She found her later. Her voice broke. That baby was you, Akosua. I felt the world tilt. Tears burned my eyes. Ya squeezed my shoulder gently. So you're her aunt. And her mother at the same time. Abena Asante nodded. Efua never told you because she wanted you to love her freely. She told me once, if Akosua grows up knowing I'm her mother's sister, she'll feel divided. Let her heart be whole. We all cried. The room was filled with sobs, and yet it felt like freedom, like a secret finally exhaled. After we calmed down, she reached for a drawer and brought out a stack of papers. Efua wrote to me until the year she died. She told me everything about each of you. She said, they will change this nation one day. She looked at us and smiled faintly. And she was right. The foundation you built, I watch it on TV. You are doing exactly what she dreamed of. Ya wiped her eyes. Then come with us. Come to Accra and see what she built. She would want you there. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, it's time. When we arrived back in Accra with her, the children at the orphanage ran out shouting, Grandma! She laughed and hugged them, tears streaming down her cheeks. That evening, we held a small service in the yard. The lamps glowed softly as we sang Mama Efua's favorite hymn. Abena Asante prayed aloud, her voice trembling but strong. Lord, thank you for mending what the years broke. Let this home be a shelter for every child forgotten by the world. Afterward, we sat quietly. She told us how she had been secretly sending money to the foundation's early donors for years, always under another name. I wanted to help, she said, but I was afraid you would hate me. I took her hand. You gave me life twice, once through birth and again through truth. Weeks passed, and everything began to settle again. Donations grew, the clinic expanded, and the foundation received a national award. People from across Ghana came to see Efua's daughters and the woman who raised them. One afternoon, as reporters left after an interview, Ya turned to me. "You realize what's happening, right? We've become the story we used to hear. Love turning pain into purpose." I smiled. "That's what Mama always said. Love never dies, it just changes shape." Later that night, as the compound quieted down, Abena Asante came to my room. She handed me a sealed envelope. "This was the last letter your mother wrote before she died," she said softly. "She wanted me to give it to you when you were ready." My hands shook as I opened it. "My child, if you are reading this, it means you finally know everything. Do not carry guilt for what I kept from you. My silence was love. You were the bridge that held us all together. Promise me one thing, keep the door of this house open for every child who knocks. Because one day, they will call you Mama too." I pressed the letter to my heart and wept until dawn. The next morning, I stood at the foundation gate watching children arrive for school. Some were barefoot, some carried old bags, but all of them smiled. I realized then that Mama Efua's words had already come true. They called me Mama Akosua. And just like that, I understood what she meant. Being a mother isn't about giving birth. It's about giving love. If you're listening now, remember, truth may take years to surface, but love never fades. Tell me in the comments. Would you forgive the person who hid the truth to protect your heart? Type "love never dies" if you believe every act of love leaves a mark that time can't erase. And stay tuned to Tales by Wealth, because in the next chapter, the legacy of Mama Efua's daughters will touch the world in ways even she never imagined. The day the world learned our story was the day Mama Efua's dream became something bigger than we could ever imagine. It began with a phone call from a television producer in Accra. "We want to feature Efua's Daughters Foundation on our national program," he said. "People across Ghana, and even abroad, need to hear what you've done." I almost dropped the phone. "You mean a live interview?" "Yes. Bring all your sisters and the woman you call Aunt Abena. The nation should meet you." We spent the next week preparing. The children polished the compound, the older girls painted the gate again, and ESI supervised the clinic's nurses. Ya arranged new uniforms for the orphans, bright yellow shirts with green skirts, and Abena taught them a song to sing on TV. "Love never dies, it only multiplies." When the cameras finally arrived, I felt Mama Efua's presence everywhere. The smell of roasted maize from the corner stall, the laughter of the girls she would have adored, the warmth of the Ghanaian sun resting gently on the roof she once prayed over. The presenter smiled. "Akosua, tell Ghana who you are." I swallowed hard, the microphone trembling in my hands. "I am one of 4 girls nobody wanted," I said. "But a woman named Efua Asante chose us, loved us, and taught us that family is not born, it's built. Today, we continue her work by raising children who will never know abandonment." The audience clapped. Ya added, "We are living proof that love is stronger than shame." And then Aunt Abena, Mama Efua's sister, stepped forward. She held up her late sister's photograph and said, "This woman turned her mistakes into miracles. Let her story remind every Ghanaian mother that no child is worthless." The applause was thunderous. Within days, the video went viral. Messages flooded our inbox, some from Accra, others from Nigeria, Liberia, Jamaica, even the United States. One message read, "Your story made me forgive my mother after 20 years. Another said, "Because of Mama Efua, I adopted 2 girls from my village." It was overwhelming, beautiful, and humbling. The government invited us to speak at the National Women's Conference in Accra. We were seated beside ministers and international delegates. For a moment, I wished Mama Efua could see her 4 daughters now. Once barefoot and hungry, now standing as voices for every forgotten child. But amidst the celebration, another emotion rose quietly in me, fear. The bigger our name became, the more responsibility we carried. Donations increased, journalists called daily, and people came with their own hidden motives. One evening, Abena approached me with concern. "Akosua, some companies want to use the foundation for publicity. They're offering money, but they want control." I shook my head. "That's not why we built this. We can't sell her name for profit. Ya nodded in agreement. We've come too far to let greed destroy what love built. And so we made a vow that night to keep the foundation pure no matter the cost. We would grow slowly, honestly, just as Mama Efua would have done. Months passed. The foundation expanded into 3 regions: Accra, Kumasi, and Takoradi. Each branch cared for orphans, widows, and single mothers. We named the new branches after the virtues Mama Efua lived by: Grace Home, Mercy House, Hope Center. One Saturday morning, as the children played under the mango tree, I watched a little boy sitting alone on the steps. His clothes were torn, and his eyes were distant. I walked over. "Why aren't you playing?" He looked up. "They said I don't belong here. I don't have a family name." My heart tightened. I knelt beside him. "You belong now. What's your name, my son?" He whispered, "Kojo." I smiled. "Then from today your name is Kojo Efua, because everyone here belongs to Mama." He hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe. At that moment, I realized I had become what she was, a mother to the forgotten. 1 year later, we organized the Foundation's 25th anniversary gala. The hall in Accra was filled with dignitaries, church leaders, and hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by Mama Efua's story. A giant banner read, 25 years of love, from 4 daughters to 40 children. When I stepped onto the stage, I saw Abena, and ESI in the front row, each holding one of our adopted girls. Aunt Abena sat beside them, smiling proudly. I took a deep breath. 25 years ago, a poor woman did something unthinkable. She adopted 4 abandoned girls. People laughed at her, mocked her, called her mad. But she didn't care. She built love out of nothing, and that love built us. The audience stood, clapping. Tears blurred my eyes as I continued. Tonight, we honor her by doing the unthinkable again. We, her daughters, are adopting 40 more children from across Ghana, boys and girls, forgotten but not lost. From this night forward, they will bear her name and her heart. Gasps filled the hall, then thunderous applause. Some people cried openly. Others knelt in prayer. It felt like the whole nation was embracing Mama Efua all over again. After the event, a little girl in a red dress came running to me. "Auntie Akosua, are you really going to be my mummy now?" I knelt, smiling through tears. "Yes, my child. Not just me, all of us. You have many mothers now." She hugged me tightly and whispered, "Then I'm not afraid anymore." Those words stayed with me long after the lights went out. That night, when everyone else had gone to bed, I walked to Mama Efua's grave behind the compound. The moonlight bathed it in silver. I placed fresh hibiscus flowers on the soil and said, "You see, Mama? The girls nobody wanted have become mothers to many. Your love didn't end. It multiplied." The wind whispered through the mango leaves, soft and sweet, almost like her voice. I still remember the sound of the morning bells that day, the day everything came full circle. 25 years had passed since Mama Efua carried 4 abandoned babies into her small, broken home. Now, those same daughters were mothers, leaders, and living proof that her love had conquered time. The sun rose beautifully over Accra, spilling gold light across the new compound of Efua's Daughters Foundation. The walls were freshly painted cream and gold, and the large new signboard gleamed with pride. The Efua Grace Village, a home for every forgotten child. I stood at the gate, my heart full. Today was the grand opening of our newest project, a complete community built for orphans and widows. There were homes, a school, a clinic, and a training center. It wasn't just a foundation anymore. It was a family, a nation of love. The air buzzed with excitement. Journalists, volunteers, politicians, even church choirs had gathered. The children were dressed in white lace and kente, singing one of Mama Efua's favorite songs. "Love never dies. It only multiplies." Ya stood beside me, looking elegant but simple in her cream African gown. Abena held a Bible in her hand. ESI had her nurse's badge pinned proudly to her chest. And Aunt Abena Asante, now older and frilier, sat on a chair under the mango tree, smiling at all of us. It was as if Mama Efua herself was there, her spirit glowing in every wall, every child's laughter, every prayer that filled the air. When it was time for the speech, I walked slowly to the podium. The crowd quieted, waiting. I could feel the weight of 25 years in my chest. All the tears, the hunger, the heartbreak, the forgiveness, and the miracles. My name, I began softly, is Akosua Efua. I stand here today not as someone special, but as proof that love can rewrite destiny. The crowd leaned in. 25 years ago, a poor woman in Ghana did what the world thought was foolish. She adopted 4 abandoned girls. She gave them food, education, and something no amount of money could buy: love. Today, we are her voice, her hands, her legacy. The crowd erupted in applause. Yas stepped forward, her voice trembling. Mama Efua was once mocked for taking in children no one wanted. Today, those children have built a home for over 500 others. This is her victory. ESI added softly, "We have named this place the Efua Grace Village because her grace raised generations." As we spoke, the children released white balloons into the sky. They floated upward, shining against the morning sun. Each balloon carried a small message written by the children. "Thank you, Mama Efua. We love you." A wave of emotion swept through the crowd. People wept openly, even the politicians and journalists. For once, the entire country stood united by one woman's unshakable love. Later that afternoon, when everyone had gone, we gathered under the mango tree. Just us 4 sisters and Aunt Abena. The same tree where Mama Efua used to tell us stories now stood taller and stronger, its roots deep in the same soil where her tears once fell. Aunt Abena spoke first. "Your mother's love has become a light to this world, but her work is not finished. It must live through you." Ya nodded. "It will continue until no child in Ghana sleeps hungry again." Abena added, "Until no girl grows up believing she's worthless." Si whispered, "Until no woman feels alone in her pain." I smiled through tears. "Until love becomes the language everyone understands." We joined hands around the tree and prayed. When we finished, a soft breeze rustled the leaves, like a whisper saying, "Well done, my daughters." That evening, as the sun sank behind the horizon, I walked through the village. The children were playing football, their laughter echoing across the compound. Some were learning to cook, others were reading in the classroom. The air smelled of home, clean, warm, and safe. I stopped near the clinic and saw a new plaque hanging on the wall. It read, "In loving memory of Efua Asante, the woman who chose love over blood." I touched it gently and whispered, "We did it, Mama. Your story didn't end with you. It became ours." As the stars appeared, Ya joined me, holding a small child in her arms. "She fell asleep," Ya said softly, smiling. "What's her name?" I asked. "Her name is Efua," Ya replied. "I named her after Mama." The little girl stirred in her arms, then smiled in her sleep. I reached out and touched her tiny hand. "She's lucky," I whispered. "She'll never know what it feels like to be unwanted." Ya nodded. "That's the gift Mama gave us. The power to change what love looks like." We stood there for a long time, watching the lights from the village shimmer under the stars. Every house, every wall, every laugh was proof that love had won. Before we went inside, I looked at the sky one last time and said, "Thank you, Mama. You gave us everything. And now, through us, you live forever." The wind answered, gentle, warm, filled with peace. I smiled. Love had finished its circle. If you're listening right now, remember, no act of love is ever wasted. What you give today can outlive you tomorrow. Tell me in the comments, do you believe love can change generations? Type "Love never dies" if Mama Efua's story touched your heart. And thank you for watching Tales by Wealth, where stories like this remind us that even in pain, love always wins.